Welcome to Buffalo Pregame, your source for live Buffalo football discussion, news, analysis, opinions, and more. Presented by ASM Publications and Bills Digest.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Buffalo Pregame. I'm your host, Alex Brasky, here for ASM Publications and Shout Magazine. On tonight's show, we provide a few final takeaways from the Bills' Week 4 win over the New Orleans Saints. I had a few other obligations this past week, which did not allow me to preview the matchup, but wanted to make sure we got in here and gave you a few news and notes from my perspective before we move on to the Week 5 matchup between the Bills and New England Patriots. I'd also like to remind you that each week on Buffalo Pregame, I'll provide updates on the NFL, NHL, and more via daily articles, podcasts, videos, and more. Please subscribe to Buffalo Pregame with Alex Brasky on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, along with Buffalo Pregame with Alex Brasky on Substack, both of which are free of charge. Also, head over to the YouTube app. The link is in the show post, and please like, share, and subscribe to the Buffalo Pregame YouTube channel. It would really mean a whole lot to me. All right, let's get into it. We start with the play of the game from this past Sunday. Cole Bishop's interception, just a fantastic play, and a sign that I think that this player is starting to take some steps within this defense. His processing, I think, is starting to speed up, and just the overall comfortability that Cole Bishop is starting to show within the defense is really going to be a boon for the Bills as the season progresses. It does appear as if Taylor Rapp may have taken a step back this year. I haven't really enjoyed watching him play this season, but the good news is that Cole Bishop finally starting to assert himself within this defensive scheme. And I think it all comes down to confidence. And thank you, Nathan. I'm glad to be back as well. It seems like Bishop's confidence has really bloomed this season from where he was during the preseason, maybe a little bit tentative, and now playing with a level of tenacity that I don't think that you've seen from him early in his career. And I'm sure his grasp of the defense has really helped with that tremendously. And it was just an incredible read on the interception that he recorded on the Philly special called by the Saints on Sunday. And just another example of how far this player has come in a short amount of time. And Sean McDermott talked about it dating back to last season, how all Bishop needed was time on task and more reps alongside Taylor Rapp within this defense. And I think you're starting to see the fruits of his labor heading into Week 5 of his second season. Wasn't able to earn the starting role this year, earned it this year, and seems to have hit the ground running after a slow start in Week 1 for both he and Rapp against the Baltimore Ravens. But aside from Bishop's interception, it was really otherwise a pretty rough day defensively for the Bills in this one. And I want to get into the run defense, which obviously is the most concerning aspect of the Bills on the defensive side of the ball. I know that they've given up the third and longs in the passing game, and they've allowed the quarterback to get out and scramble, buy some extra time, and connect downfield. But really, I think the most significant issue with this Bills defense lies in the running game. 117 yards given up in the first half against the New Orleans Saints, 189 for the game, an average of 5.6 yards per carry. The Bills are now allowing the second most rushing yards in the league at 164.3 per game. That's just 0.2 yards behind the Chicago Bears. And I think a lot of fans are looking at Ed Oliver and Matt Milano and their injuries and their timeline for return as something that could perhaps put a Band-Aid on the Bills' lack of production in run support. But even with their return and the upcoming return of Michael Hoyt and Larry Ogunjobi from suspension, I think it's a lot to ask of this unit just to all of a sudden transform into above-average run-stopping group, because if you look at it dating back to Week 1, this team has really struggled to plug the holes up front. And I think really the most concerning aspect of the run defense is at the second level with the linebacker play. Terrell Bernard really hasn't made a difference in run support, and Dorian Williams has been either a step behind or over pursuing in run support. And I think he's taken a significant step back from where you saw him last year, replacing Matt Milano, finishing as the team's leading tackler. But what we've seen from Dorian Williams this season is a clear sign of regression. I don't know if I'm ready to officially call it that Dorian Williams has regressed in year 2. It's still only week 5, and there's a long way to go. There could be many more opportunities to come for him, but I have not liked what I've seen from Dorian Williams. And Terrell Bernard, an undersized linebacker, he's always going to give up a little bit as a middle linebacker in the NFL in terms of his ability to come up and stop the run. And I think you've seen some of the warts from this Bills run defense at the start of the year. And rookie Deion Walker makes a flash play every once in a while. And I think Daquan Jones, after I kind of ridiculed him to start the year, I think he's performed a little bit better than I had expected. But Greg Rousseau and Joey Bosa have left a little bit to be desired on the edge, and in terms of containment of quarterbacks and for running backs for that matter. I know that this past game, there were a few clips posted on social media of Joey Bosa crashing down, and that may have been a product of some zone read plays on the part of the Saints. But overall, I think his season as a run defender hasn't been as effective as I was expecting based on what we saw from him during training camp in the preseason. So I think the 2 edge defenders have a little bit more to offer. I also think once you get Oliver back and perhaps Hoyt and Ogunjobi, that can give you a little bit of a boost up front. Same with Milano. But overall, this unit really needs to get some things corrected. And maybe it's like Nathan Oliver points out, he must have been inside my head. I think one of the buttons that the Bills could push is you've seen them go to that base defense a little bit more often through the first 4 weeks than we saw from them a season ago. And Shaq Thompson has really showed a high level of play in some limited snaps. He played 11 snaps in place of Williams this past week, and that came late in the game. And Sean McDermott said it wasn't necessarily anything that Dorian Williams did to see Shaq Thompson inserted into the game. It was more of a product of Williams dealing with a few bumps and bruises at that point. But I think, especially while Milano is still on the mend, you have to consider going to that base defense a little bit more often, putting that third linebacker on the field, because right now it's just not getting the job done with those 2 linebackers on the field, as you've allowed opposing running games to just run all over you through 4 weeks. As I mentioned before, it's second worst in the league, and I think they entered week 4 as the worst run defense in the league. So it's just been really, really poor from the Bills in terms of run support, and they need to get things figured out if they want to play deep into December and January, because we all know during the postseason, that's really when running games are at their best or most impactful, when the weather gets a little bit colder, passing sometimes with weather in terms of precipitation gets a little bit more difficult. So I think you need to make those corrections up front and at the second level, or else it's going to be a long, long road for this Bills defense, especially once the schedule starts to get tougher over the next few weeks. And Dave asked, does Bean need to make a trade to help this defense? I don't think that this defense has enough talent, and I've been calling for added pieces to be brought in via trade or free agency dating back to the offseason. I know we were all on the pipe dream of Myles Garrett at one point, Trey Hendrickson we were asking for. That obviously helps a little bit more in pass rushing circumstances, but Brandon Beane also didn't address in terms of bringing in a nose tackle, a definitive nose tackle for this team. He brings in Deion Walker through the draft. TJ Sanders, more of a pass rusher. So you don't have that big body up front. I'm not sure there's many available out there on the trade market. So Dave, to answer your question, I think it's something that you have to entertain here over the next several weeks, but I don't think it's very likely considering the options out there, along with the track record, I would say, of what Brandon Beane seems to value up front in terms of his defensive tackles. But speaking of tackling was really the real issue for the Bills in terms of their ability to stop the run this past week, with 165 of the Saints' 189 total rushing yards coming after contact, that number per Next Gen Stats. And look no further than the Saints' first touchdown in that game, that 18-yard run from Kendre Miller, just an exhibition of poor tackling. Taron Johnson had a chance at the line of scrimmage, Taylor Rapp at the next level, and then Trey White had a couple of arms on him as well down the field, but all whiffed on Miller en route to the end zone. So real concerns at all three levels, I think, in terms of the Bills' ability to stop the run. And I just don't see the corrections coming all that quickly. Dave mentioned a trade. Barring a significant piece added before the trade deadline, I'm just not so sure that the personnel that the Bills have can overcome some of the deficiencies that they've shown early in this season. And speaking of those deficiencies, once again, it called on Josh Allen to kind of put the team on his back in the second half to overcome some of the shortcomings from the Bills defense and the offense, for that matter, throughout the course of the first half. The last 14 plays for the Bills in the first half gained a total of 13 yards. So it wasn't just the defense that was to blame for the Saints' early momentum in this game. The offense also didn't do its part. But you look at down the stretch, Josh Allen makes the plays needed to help the Bills win the game. And the run and then the pass to Dalton Kincaid for the touchdown to put the game away in the fourth quarter was just what makes Josh Allen so valuable. I talked about the exhibition of poor tackling. This was a prime example of Josh Allen's heroics that he often puts forth at the end of games. Just the toughness. And as Sean McDermott termed it in his, I believe it was his Monday press conference or perhaps after the game, just the will to win that Josh Allen displayed on that third down run, advancing the ball down the field before he set up Dalton Kincaid down the sideline for the 28-yard touchdown. Just beautiful touch on the ball. Kincaid wide open running down the field, a new career high for Kincaid in touchdown receptions with 3 now. But just a beautiful throw from Allen and showing you that dual threat ability and the ability, as I said before, to recognize the moment. And Sean McDermott also alluded, or not even alluded to the fact, spoke on the fact that when Allen raises his level of play like he did on that 27-yard run, just barreling through defenders down the middle of the field, seemingly just kicking it into overdrive to set his team up for another score. When Allen raises his level of play, his teammates raise their level of play. And you saw that for the Bills in crunch time, come up with some big plays needed to close that game out. And this wasn't Allen's best day. He left some throws out there. I mentioned the stretch at the end of the first half. He also threw his first interception of the season, and first interception dating back to, I think, 6, 7, 8 games or so. I can't remember the number. I apologize. I couldn't spring it off the top of my head there. But like I said, when it mattered most, once again, Josh Allen came through, and he seems to do that at every opportunity, more so as these past 2 seasons have developed. And we all saw it in week 1 against the Baltimore Ravens, and then again in a game against the Miami Dolphins in week 3, and then for the third time this season against the Saints in a game that was really in doubt at points early in the second half. So just Josh Allen doing Josh Allen things. And you look at James Cook, and we'll talk about him later and what he's done for this Bills offense, and you can bring him into the most valuable player for the Bills offense this season. But Josh Allen, just what he does to set the table for his teammates, and as Sean McDermott said, raise their level of play. Just incredible to see week after week, and putting forth another MVP level campaign is Allen through 4 weeks. And Khalil Shakir aided Allen's performance with another incredible catch and run for a touchdown this past week against the Saints. Got the Bills going on the opening drive. Just Shakir once again exhibiting that yak ability. He, I believe, had 28 yards after catch over expected on the play, just bouncing off defenders, pinballing his way down the sideline. And he's just got those short legs, that long torso, and just that strong center of gravity that he used to his advantage on that 43-yard touchdown. He's got 16 catches, 190 yards, 2 touchdowns on the season. He's on pace for another 800-plus yard season. He's as valuable as wide receivers come in this league. The Bills employ that everybody eats mentality, but when it comes down to it, Khalil Shakir makes so many big plays for this Bills offense that it's tough not to consider him the team's wide receiver 1 in terms of impact. And Nathan, I'll get to your next comment down the road here, but Shakir got things going in this game. But as I mentioned before, it was once again James Cook as the offense's catalyst on Sunday. He's really been a workhorse for the Bills this season. He's accounted for 79.8% of the carries taken by Buffalo running backs on the year. Third down running back Ty Johnson has seen just 8 carries this season, while Ray Davis has accounted for 11 during the 2025 campaign. And Johnson's offensive snap share is down slightly from a season ago, from 29% to 27%, while Davis's has slipped 10% from the first 4 weeks compared to where it was throughout the 2024 campaign. He's playing 14% of the Bills' offensive snaps, whereas last year he played 24% of the team's offensive snaps. So Joe Brady, offensive coordinator, took blame for kind of the decrease in usage for the team's secondary running backs this season, saying that he's really just been riding the hot hand with James Cook. Cook has been so impressive that it's been difficult to turn away from him. But he also stated that Ray Davis, quote, needs to play more. So there could be a new look coming for this Bills running back room in the near future. And Brady also mentioned it's his job to keep James Cook healthy and playing into November, December, January, perhaps February. And the best way to do that is to spread the wealth in the backfield. And he also mentioned that when the Bills running game was at its best last season was when they were featuring all three running backs in their roles and getting all three involved. So fans may not want to hear it based on the way that James Cook has dominated the opposition through the first 4 weeks, but the second leading rusher in the NFL could be set for a decrease in carries in the coming weeks because it does appear as if more work is coming for Ty Johnson and Ray Davis if you take Joe Brady's word as kind of if you put a lot of stock in what the coordinators say, I should say, because sometimes you listen to these coordinators talk and it's just coach speak to the umpteenth level. But you heard Sean McDermott say it during his press conference, how he wants to get Ray Davis, Ty Johnson a little bit more involved. And you heard Brady back that up during his time at the microphone as well. So could be a new look coming for the Bills running back room. But whoever is running the ball, the Bills offensive line has been the best run blocking unit in the NFL through 4 games. And as John Robert points out, Jackson Hawes, the rookie tight end, has been a significant factor in that. I read on Twitter, I wonder if I screenshotted it. Sometimes I do that with good stats. I don't think I did. But the Bills' 13 personnel is averaging the most. Let's just say this. The Bills in 13 personnel is the most effective set used by any team in the NFL this season. They're having either the highest EPA. I really wish I screenshotted it, but John Robert brings up a good point that their usage of 13 personnel has been the most effective offensive set used by any team in the league this season. And Jackson Hawes has been obviously the main reason for that. You saw him outsnap Dalton Kincaid this past week, and the Bills' running game really benefited as a result. And even with Spencer Brown out this past week, by many accounts, his replacement, Ryan Vandermark, fared a bit better than initially had been kind of deemed on Sunday. We saw him get beat a couple of times for sacks, but a couple of people that I trust, including Joe Marino of Locked On Bills and Brandon Thorne of Bleacher Report, they both raved about Vandermark's performance, particularly in the running game, helping pave the way for James Cook and others out of the backfield. So it just goes to show you that sometimes there's more than meets the eye with these players when it comes to watching the game live as opposed to going back and watching the game on film. But with that said, I expect Brown will return this week against the Patriots, which is a pretty big game for the Bills. And it doesn't seem like it is with the Bills at 4-2 and the Patriots at 4-0 and the Patriots at 2-2. And you look at it at face value, you look at kind of the trajectory of both teams, but you look at kind of the swing that could happen with this game. If the Bills are to win on Sunday, they'd go up 3.5 games in the division. If they're to lose, it'll be a half-game lead with the Patriots carrying the tiebreaker. So this is a massive game for the Bills coming up against the New England Patriots. And I expect Brown to be back off the mend, and maybe even the Bills get back Ed Oliver and Matt Milano in this game as well, and also a few others that are eligible to return from IR that we'll be keeping an eye on as well this week. But a little bit more on that later. We'll flip over to the defensive side of the ball from this past weekend's game against the Saints. And as stated earlier, rookie Deion Walker continues to shine. He had 2 massive run stuffs in this game where he just kind of ushered the Saints offensive linemen aside, just dispatching him at the line of scrimmage before bursting into the backfield to make a play, one of which came on Alvin Kamara, I believe, on a 3rd down play. So he's been the Bills' most impressive rookie through 4 weeks, and I guess it's not all that difficult to be the Bills' most impressive rookie with the first-round pick, Maxwell Hairston, on injured reserve, and the third-round pick, Landon Jackson, having yet to see a game day jersey. But while Jackson Hawes may have claimed to the Bills' most effective rookie, as I stated before, from my perspective, Walker, being that he's a player on the Bills' defensive line, a unit that needed to take a step forward this year, and while it's left a little bit to be desired, he's been one of the lone bright spots for the Bills with Ed Oliver out. He's outperforming his fourth-round selection, and I think he's showing why the Bills had such faith in him, taking him in the fourth round. He had a tough final season in college, but if you look back to his last healthy season in college, that's what he's putting on display this season. He's kind of throwing it back to that season and really coming up with some big plays for the Bills. So a bright spot there for Deon Walker. More on the Bills rookie class from Sunday. The first-year cornerback Dorian Strong rotating in for Tre'Davious White at times versus the Saints. He played 15 snaps, was not tested in coverage. He displayed impressive ability to come up and provide some assistance in run support, but like I said, not tested in coverage, so we'll have to keep an eye on that rotation. Sean McDermott did say that he doesn't like shuffling in and out at the defensive back position, says that he wouldn't enjoy that as a player, so he doesn't like to put his players in that scenarios. But he did mention that they did want to get Dorian Strong some much-needed repetitions, kind of build his experience just in case he's needed down the stretch of this season, because Tre'Davious White has shown some kind of bumps in the road this season, and Christian Benford hasn't been perfect either. He let up another touchdown this past season, or this past week against the Saints. I'm not concerned with him yet. He dealt with a preseason groin injury, but that will be something to monitor if Benford can't return to his dominant self, because there's questions with Trey White. Dorian Strong, although he's shown well, I don't think you can firmly rely on him come playoff time at this point. So you still have to see what Maxwell Hairston could potentially offer coming off injured reserve, but there's questions at the cornerback position with that rotation taking place this past week. And it's not the first time that we've seen the Bills employ that type of rotation, with Benford rotating in and out with Kyer Elam during those two players' rookie seasons. So I'm sure that Bills fans will be hoping that Dorian Strong can turn out to be as good as Benford has. Well, he hasn't been at his best this season. He had a phenomenal season a year ago and has really been a revelation as a former sixth-round pick. So Dorian Strong coming on strong in that minor rotation used this past week. He played only 15 snaps. I think it was only 2 series for Strong. So not extensive time, but time nonetheless in this Bills secondary against New Orleans. And lastly, when it comes to the Bills rookies, we did see the debuts of Jordan Hancock and Chase Lunt. Hancock played 8 snaps on special teams. Lunt saw 3 snaps on the offensive side of the ball. Hancock was a hot name during the preseason, but with Bishop seemingly locking down the safety position, I don't think that you'll see Hancock play a significant role, barring injury, this season for the Bills. Elsewhere, the Bills' revolving door on special teams continued to spin on Sunday and leading into Week 5 as the Bills shifted return duties against the Saints, making top return man Brandon Codrington inactive. Khalil Shakir returned punts. Curtis Samuel, who was active for the first time, returned kicks alongside Ty Johnson. So it'll be interesting to follow this dynamic, and Codrington does not have the versatility that Samuel does on the defensive side of the ball. Codrington is unlikely to ever be used at cornerback, while Samuel has proven to be an impactful pass catcher for the Bills dating back to last season, and also had a reception against the Saints on Sunday. So with Hoyt and Ogunjobi set to be activated off suspension in the coming weeks, and several other players sitting on IR and their status yet to be determined by the team, the Bills are likely to have some tough decisions in terms of roster and personnel coming up. So it seems like the Bills have kind of gotten the ball rolling to see what their best 53 is and their best 22 on game day for that matter as well. So a lot of questions. Will Codrington be released? And beyond that, who's going to take his spot back there? Will it be Samuel? Will Shakir be the punt returner moving forward, which I certainly am not a fan of? I think that that's an injury waiting to happen. And with his value on the offensive side of the ball, I just am not comfortable with Khalil Shakir being this team's top punt returner. But like I said, this will be something to follow throughout the course of the week and leading into the game against the New England Patriots. If the Bills continue to test out different pieces at those positions, or if they go back to Codrington, or if they keep Shakir and Samuel back there as returners on punts and kicks, respectively. More changes on special teams for the Bills on Tuesday. They placed week 2 through 4 punter Cameron Johnston on IR after they signed him to replace Brad Robbins after week 1. They signed new punter Mitch Wishnowsky. Yes, Mitch Wishnowsky, the second straight Australian-style punter that the team has signed. Johnston was run into by the Saints' Nefi Sewell during the fourth quarter of Sunday's win, sustained foot and ankle injuries. Wishnowsky has spent 6 seasons with the San Francisco 49ers after being drafted in the 4th round of the 2019 NFL Draft. He missed the last 8 games of the 2024 season due to a back injury, and before that, he just wasn't very good. He averaged a measly net average of 36.3 yards per punt through 9 games last year. He was subsequently released in May by the 49ers in favor of Thomas Morstead. In terms of the Bills punting job, he beat out 2 other punters that the Bills tried out on Tuesday. Oscar Chapman and Pat O'Donnell were in for a tryout, but it's Wishnowsky, another Australian, his nickname being the Boomin' Onion, coming in, taking over punting duties for the Buffalo Bills heading into week 5. And he features a helicopter punt, which I was reading Ryan Talbot of Syracuse.com's article, and that makes the punt a little bit more difficult to field. And I think he's got a few other styles of punts as well, so something to watch on Sunday against the Patriots. But this guy was a free agent for a reason. He was released by the 49ers, released by the Commanders earlier this summer after he was placed on the practice squad briefly. So don't expect Pro Bowl level of play here. This is not Brian Moorman walking through the door for the Buffalo Bills. All right, finally, let's take a quick look ahead at this week's AFC East matchup. But before we do so, please like, share, and subscribe to this episode and podcast. As John Robert reminds me once again, it would really do me a solid if you head on over to YouTube, like, share, subscribe, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and then obviously on the audio side as well. So if you're watching on X, watching on Facebook, wherever you're watching, please head on over to YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, hit that like, share, and subscribe button. All right, finally, we'll dive in a little bit to this AFC East matchup coming up on Sunday night. This is a big game for both teams. I mentioned before, it could be kind of a 3-game swing, as Uber Hansen pointed out on X earlier today. If the Bills win, 3.5-game lead over the Patriots. If they lose, it would be just a half game with New England being 1 game back in the loss column and holding that head-to-head tiebreaker. So as good as the Bills have played over the first 4 weeks, 1 game could completely turn the tide for this team and really send fans spiraling into week 6 against the Falcons, desperate for a victory. So the Bills are hoping for whiteout conditions at the stadium on Sunday night. They're asking fans to wear white. They're wearing their white rivalry uniforms. They're handing out white towels. So it should be quite the environment inside Highmark Stadium. And boy, it would be quite a letdown if the Patriots came into Orchard Park and won for the first time since the 2021 season. So we'll dive a little bit more into the nitty-gritty of this matchup as the week goes. But before we take off, I want to quickly take a look at the quarterback matchup for the Bills this week. And Drake May has shown some signs of becoming New England's next great quarterback this season. He's completed at least 75% of his passes and thrown for at least 2 passing touchdowns in each of the last 3 games. And only Tom Brady in weeks 1 through 4 of his MVP season in 2007 had a longer such streak within a single season in NFL history. So Drake May is doing some big things this year, and this will be the best quarterback the Bills have faced since Lamar Jackson in week 1. So Buffalo is going to have to be at its best defensively, and you look back at that week 1 game, Jackson really picking the Bills apart. They cannot allow May to do the same this week in week 5. So May is also a dual threat as a runner. He scored 2 rushing touchdowns this season. So the defensive game plan for the Bills this week must center around May and his dual threat ability and really limiting those opportunities for him to impact the game and forcing New England to beat you with its running game, which has not been so great this season. It's within the bottom 10, I believe, in the league in terms of yards per game. Ramondre Stevenson, its top running back, has been a fumble machine through the first 4 weeks. So you really have to focus on May here and how he's able to impact the game. If you can shut down May, I think it really limits New England's opportunities in winning this game. But once again, please like, share, subscribe. But that's going to do it for this episode. Wanted to get quickly in and out as the New York Yankees are currently in their first wild card matchup of the season, taking on the rival Boston Red Sox. And I'm going to go sit on the couch and take that game in and hope for a Yankees win and a series win in 2 games of this short 3-game set. But thank you for joining me. I appreciate everybody tuning in as we had a brief respite this past week, but we'll be back with another episode previewing this weekend's matchup against the New England Patriots, and we'll be with you once again regularly moving forward here on Buffalo Pregame. So thank you for joining me, and we'll see you next time.